When it comes to choosing a path that is more in alignment with our soul, I've come to accept that the process of doing so is not linear. This kind of path is one that feels deeply ours, and they're usually not molded by pressure, expectation, or fear. However, being in this path can sometimes feel contradicting because modern day society has been conditioning most of us to play it safe through steady paychecks, education systems that reward conformity, and the promise that following established rules will guarantee financial success. While I advocate embracing a more soulful path to life, I also cannot overlook the challenge of building financial security to sustain ourselves long term. To really understand how this works, we'll need to look at it through a lens that isn't typically mentioned in most spiritual discussions. So, behind every decision we make, whether it be big or small, are actually subtly shaped by emotions, habits, and invisible pressures. Behavioral economics is the study of why we make decisions that are not always rational and how our choices are driven by emotions, habits, peer pressures, and mental shortcuts. This is important to understand because the very first step in aligning my soul path to financial freedom is to have an honest conversation with myself. Behavioral economics teaches that our financial decisions follow predictable patterns even when they seem random. So understanding these underlying patterns, I believe, is key to having that honest conversation with myself. Now let's take it a bit deeper. Say you're someone who's deciding to go to college in hopes to get a higher paying job, yet every time you begin that process, it feels like you're betraying a part of yourself. If I were in this situation, I'd begin a self-assessment and I'd ask myself, if no one expected me to go to college, would I still want to go? Is this the most direct or only path to solve the problem of being stuck in a low-paying job? Am I assuming that this is the best path just because it's the most common one? And as you can see, as I'm narrowing it down further, I start to think, what could open up if I detach myself from the belief that I have to go to college? Asking myself this kind of question gives me that gentle nudge to look up case studies of successful people who didn't go to school and take inspiration from their stories. So then it leads me to thinking, what's more important, the status quo or my core authentic needs? And do they overlap? And if so, then that means I've found a conscious way to work within the system on my own terms without losing myself. By doing this kind of self-assessment, I can detect any emotional triggers, societal pressures, conditionings, and mental shortcuts that drive my choices, especially choices where money gets involved. Speaking of mental shortcuts, I want to talk about them more a little bit because they can easily trap us in a dead-end path, especially when making high-stakes decisions like college, career, or financial investments. According to cognitive load theory, our brain is constantly flooded with information. To conserve mental energy and avoid being overwhelmed, the brain takes cognitive shortcuts to make decisions fast. When we become aware of these shortcuts, space opens up for more thoughtful decisions that align with our values. We recognize biases like fear, peer pressure, or habits influencing our choices. When we catch biases, shortcuts, and irrational patterns, we open up space to make choices that feel more aligned and true to who we are. Over time, this leads to financial choices that create a feedback loop of confidence, clarity, and opportunity, which is the psychological foundation of building wealth. A real-life example of someone succeeding on their own terms is Garrett McNamara, who pioneered big wave surfing in Nazaré, Portugal, with, of course, the help of his team. I highly recommend the documentary 100 Foot Wave. It is my all-time favorite documentary to watch, and each time I've watched an episode, I end up feeling inspired to be in alignment with my pure potential. Anyway, Garrett McNamara and his team believed in the impossible, and the show documents their journey of dedicating to that mission through embracing their pure potential that each and every one of us have. At At the start, Garrett would spend his last penny to go hunt for a wave. He would literally not have any money left at a surfing location and would have to sell his surfboard to get a plane ticket back home. When he began to fully commit his entire life to surfing the biggest waves in the world with the team he's now built, it allowed financial opportunities to naturally flow in that direction. Where there is alignment, there is value. And where there is value, there are financial opportunities. When we fully commit to a mission, the question of, oh, how long will it take for me to see results needs to get thrown out the window. I got comfortable with the safety net of being a college student where outcomes like grades are on predictable timelines, and in corporate settings, there was the predictability of steady paychecks. And now that I don't have any of those, I have no choice but to continue fine-tuning my life's work through continuous learning, skilling up, and experimenting. My soul-aligned path is definitely far from linear. I may need to intentionally secure a temporary job that would support my mission while at the same time getting paid for it. Sometimes certain decisions can serve as a bridge to a soul-aligned path. And for me, the best way to truly learn something is if I've experienced it myself. When I'm physically experiencing and testing out my own little what ifs out into the real world, my nervous system is engaged. And here, I can really listen to what my body is telling me. Our bodies are incredible at sensing what we need before our minds even catch up. This is called somatic intelligence, which is essentially our body's ability to communicate valuable information through physical sensations that we can learn to recognize and trust. Our bodies hold wisdom that our overthinking minds often miss. For example, if I describe what a mango tastes like to someone who's never had it, they won't fully understand what the hell I'm talking about until they themselves eat a mango. Also, sometimes the idea of something is not as daunting as the actual experience itself. Like those moments where we go, that went easier than I thought. And vice versa, where the idea seems easy breezy, but the actual experience is absolutely difficult to deal with. Like when I went surfing for the first time. At first, I was so confident that I'm gonna catch all the waves. But as soon as I started paddling through white waters, I was immediately too exhausted to catch my first wave and wiped out every time during the lesson. A very humbling experience for my ego. When I do the self-assessment, it takes me to a mental space where I start to think, how do I create value for not just myself, but for others too? It is truly a privilege to be able to even ask that question. I recognize that there are individuals out there who are homeless and have these huge responsibilities like feeding a family and unsure of where to start. When someone is focused on survival, it's hard to think about these kind of self-actualization questions. Learning to navigate a soul-aligned path is not about ignoring unfortunate circumstances others may be going through. It's about understanding that everyone's journey begins exactly where they are, and there are practical steps always available at every level. It starts with believing in ourselves first. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. I sincerely appreciate your time, and I'd love to hear your feedback and answer any questions you may have in the comment section. Anyway, let's take a deep breath together. And always remember the magic within you. Till next time.